All right, let's get to the big story, the lead story on the India development debate, and we're going to be talking in detail about the third wave. Now, today, it was startling almost when experts started saying that this third wave that the principal scientific advisor has called inevitable will be harsher on children. It's easy to say everyone's worst fear. Why do they believe this, and when will this third wave hit? So a few questions that we will try and answer or get some clarity on today. One is, when will this inevitable third wave hit? Will kids be more vulnerable in the third wave? How can they be protected better in this third wave? Can aggressive vaccination reduce the impact of third wave, and is that possible considering our vaccine pace has actually slowed down considerably in the last 1 month? And how can India prepare for the third wave when the fact is that we're struggling to deal with the second wave right now? To speak on some of these issues, I'm joined now by Dr. Ravi, who's a member of the Karnataka Health COVID Task Force, Dr. Shashank Joshi, who's a member of the Maharashtra Covid Task Force, and Dr. Arora, who's a chair of the COVID subcommittee of NTAGI. Welcome to the show. Great to speak to all of you. Dr. Ravi, let me start by speaking to you because your quotes, which have been carried today in newspapers and widely quoted talking about kids being vulnerable, has really got people very, very worried. Can you explain why you believe that children will be more vulnerable in the third wave?
Thank you, Tamanna, for having me on the show. SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus to humanity. There's only two ways you can get immunity. One has to either get infected or one has to get vaccinated. Having said that, you will understand that if you are neither infected nor vaccinated, the virus will definitely catch you. That is the simple epidemiology science. The susceptible people are highly likely to be infected. In the first wave and the second wave, we had adults coming down with infections. And thankfully, we have vaccines which are now being aggressively promoted. Hopefully, they will be able to cover a lot of ground. Third wave, waves occur usually with a gap of 3 to 5 months. There are no vaccines approved for children as yet. Trials are going on. That makes them even more vulnerable. Already in the second wave, 10% of infections have been in children. So one has to prepare for the worst, thinking children are going to get infected in large numbers, and prepare for it. I would love to be proven wrong, and I'll be very happy if children don't come down with COVID in the third wave. I think that will be the best gift I can get.
You know, Dr. Ravi, what will the kind of impact be? Because if I look at the first wave or when this started, everyone was talking about how, for some reason, children were not getting impacted severely, even if they did contract COVID-19, in most cases above 95%. It just showed with no symptoms or very minor, mild symptoms. Do you believe that could change by the time the third wave comes around?
It would change by simple arithmetic. The proportion of children who got infected in the first wave because they were protected by lockdowns and no schools, 10% of children are now infected. That's huge numbers in India. Approximately 30 crore children are there. This is rough ballpark figures. Up to 30 crore are there. This time around, more infections we have seen in the population, 5 to some places 10 times more in some places. Next time around, they will be more susceptible, I feel. So the proportion of people who develop severe infections, even if you keep it at 1 to 2% or 3%, that's enormous. And secondly, there is a very, very serious complication in children known as multi-system inflammatory condition following COVID, which is a complication of COVID, occurs anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks after COVID infection people have come out with. It's an immunological reaction. In Bangalore, in a nearby tertiary care hospital where we have been doing surveillance for encephalitis in the last month, We have seen 5 multi-inflammatory system. We did not see any during the first wave. Over.
Wow. This is truly, truly worrying. Dr. Arora, I'm keen to know your views. And let me break this into 2 parts. One is that what do you think will be the timeline of this third wave? Is it going to be October, December, as most people are saying? And do you concur with Dr. Ravi's view that children will be more susceptible in the third wave?
Thank you, Tamanna. So the 2 questions. Third wave, I think we have discussed before that all the virus infections, epidemics come in waves. So whether it was polio, measles, and now we see this COVID, and it is behaving in a wave form. There is a crescendo and then there is a nadir with every wave. And we saw the highest point in September, nadir in February first week, and then now it is coming up. We don't know still whether we have reached the peak. It may be few more weeks if the interventions are held. Now, and I tend to agree with Dr. Ravi that cycles may vary, and it will be 8 to 10 months, the whole cycle. So next peak may not be before the end of this year or early next year. But it will be very difficult to say at this point, because interventions like lockdown, if they are taken up in true sincerity in various parts of the country, this next week will be influenced or delayed. Now, the second component, whether children, and I think what Professor Ravi is saying, and there is a lot of truth in that. It is not that the children will become more they are likely to develop more infection. The question is, virus picks up the susceptible population. And as the disease is moving at the moment, the susceptible population is getting infected, although there is some amount of breakthrough infection. The sero surveys which have been done so far across the country has shown that children between the age of 10 years and 18 years, and from 18 years till the end of life, the proportion of infected is very similar, or the exposed to virus is very similar. It is not very different. So children are getting exposed, but I think God has been kind that they do not get too much of symptomatic infection. There is some initial study, and I think Ravi has seen that data which was last week presented from some sites, where children in this outbreak, the proportion of children getting exposed was little higher as compared to the rest of the population. It was about 2 times as compared to the other population. So that means somehow this time children and younger population has been affected. Next time the behavior is like, again, the basic principle will be those who are left susceptible. And if a lot of adults are affected this time and children still, we are able to insulate them, then they are likely to get more affected. But if they are exposed during this epidemic also, then I think we will see a very similar kind of picture, that those who are susceptible will get infected. And it is here that vaccination becomes, all those who are vaccinated will be either spared or will get milder disease.
Yeah, but then, that's the issue. There is no vaccine for children yet. Dr. Joshi, if you can just shed light on this, because people hearing this will be worried. I'm worried hearing this, because what we're hearing from top experts is that by possibly the end of calendar year 2021, you're expecting a third wave, which we've been told from the highest echelons of government is inevitable. It is likely to hit children, and there's no vaccination for children. So what are we to do?
First of all, Tamanna, there is nothing to panic. I agree with Arora sir. as well as Professor Ravi, that you see, we have to be very clear about some basic stuff. The first thing is that the first wave had a larger geriatric footprint. The second wave probably has dropped it by a decade or two, not more than that. Even now, if you see the detailed survey by Government of India, 1 decade has dropped up. But I agree with Arora sir. Last week, we saw some data that a large proportion of children between 10 to 20 are affected and may have been exposed. See, exposure is picked up by the antibody surface. My worry is that the point is that children below 10 have thymus, which causes natural immunity, and they are able to clear viruses better than adults. That's a standard, well-known, documented. Second thing is that very rarely we see what Dr. Ravi saw, those 7 cases, 5 cases. Even in Mumbai currently, in the month of April, first time we had pediatric wards which were full. SRCC was full, Wadia Children's Hospital was full. So we did see a pediatric wave, which he alluded to. Now, does it mean that the next wave will be predominantly pediatric? We probably don't know. We are speculating here. And I wish that all of us are proven wrong. But I have another concern. The concern which I have is that the seropositivity in Dharavi population has dropped. Even in this peak of this wave, we didn't see any Dharavi affected because that antibody prevalence was 50% and above. It has dropped down to 39%. By then, it will be down to 20%. If we don't vaccinate, targeted vaccination, which Arora sir has always been telling us, we will be in a bigger fix there. Second thing, for children, vaccination, the Zydus COVID is the only vaccine in India which is undergoing trials between the ages of 12 to 18. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the correct thing, which I know. And that's the only vaccine, which is some hope because it's a DNA vaccine. It's an Indian equivalent of an mRNA vaccine. So don't lose hope. I think by the first week of June, Zydus COVID will be approved in India. Their phase 3 trials are almost complete. They have done a very methodical study in this population. But below 12, again, it is going to be a challenge. We are already at Maharashtra. Today night, we have already appointed a pediatric task force. And the pediatric task force is meeting today night with the Honorable CM. I'm a part of that meeting also at 10 o'clock today night. And we are already gearing up preparation. When will that third wave come is again speculation. Behavior of human beings, behavior of virus, and the degree of restriction. These are the 3 factors. All 3 are variable factors. So if we are able to see it, probably in Mumbai, we are predicting it somewhere between September, October. We wish we are proven wrong again. And it may get deferred. Like, for example, we had predicted second wave in Mumbai between 25th of December and 26th of January. But it got deferred by 2 to 3 months. Also, we have variants of concern. So we don't know what variant of concern may also play a role. Because by now, another 3 months, we'll have better genomic data. We'll have better direction. We'll have better science. So it will be guided. But one thing is careful, that Tamanna, there's no need to panic. What is going to impact our decisions are schooling decisions, which are going to be crucial, because that's going to be a major impact, because spreading and super spreading can occur in children, because behavior change in children is tough. Second, children by and large would do well, but we need to be prepared. We have very few intensive care units for children. And if that rare syndrome occurs, we have to ensure that there is sufficient pediatric intensive care units for them. So what preparedness we are doing already, at least in the state of Maharashtra, because we know that unfortunately we get the first sort of hit, and therefore we have to be prepared. We can't be complacent at all. That we have to ensure that our pediatric intensive care units, both in public and private infrastructure, is robust. Number 2, we have to ensure that we have to sensitize our pediatric community, which is very, very strong. And they have got their Indian Academy of Pediatrics, a very robust body. They have already come out with their pediatric guidelines. And we need to sensitize them. But I don't think it is alarmistic. So I don't think we should get into an alarm signal. Also, we should not feel helpless that there is no vaccine. I am certain that independent of the vaccine, we will be able to tide over the crisis. By and large, children have a more robust immunological system. Also, remember,
we'll have to think of this independent of the vaccine because...
No, 1 minute. I just want to make one more point. Children vaccines like BCG, MMR, and oral polio might have a COVID role and may have an anti-COVID role. This is an investigational issue. I'm certain Arora sir will have a view on this also, and so would Professor Ravi. I am reasonably certain that adult immunization which is being done is usually an exception, because adult immunization has not been prevalent. Pediatric immunization, on the other hand, is a very robust, well-oiled unit in our country. So I am not worried, because at least those vaccines, as long as they are given, as long as every child gets that MMR, BCG, as well as the oral polio vaccine on time, and that could have got disrupted last year because of the challenges, I feel there will be some immune response. It may be non-specific, but some immune response. But I would definitely like to hear the wisdom of Arora sir as well as.
Okay, let me take that to Dr. Ravi. Would the current vaccination program for children in India give any kind of protection in your view?
That is actually an open question. There have been many publications and there are projects even in India looking at the protective role of BCG against COVID. And these are pediatric vaccines. Professor Joshi is right. He said that they can give non-specific protection that is very well known, that they can boost innate responses and that can protect. But the point is, I entirely agree with both of them, that the point is not to create panic, but I believe this is an opportunity to strengthen our pediatric intensive care units. Children deserve that much, whether COVID or no COVID. This is preparation for future. It is absolutely essential investment, in my opinion. I don't think we'll get an opportunity to do it again. That's number one. Second, having said that, remember, not everybody in the young adult population is going to get the vaccine. So we should not forget the lessons we learned in the second wave. We will still need to have oxygen. We will still need to have essential drugs because that proportion is the largest proportion in the population between 18 and 45. Half of them may be protected by vaccine. The other half will still be vulnerable. So I think there are many lessons for us. We have time. We have to sit, plan meticulously and implement our plans.
You know, talking about the vaccination angle, we have already seen a drop in daily vaccination. On 15th of April, we vaccinated more than 40 lakh people in a day. It has dropped to about 19 lakh in May, and this is after widening up the ambit. So the scope of vaccinating enough people 18 to 44 by the time the third wave hits, Dr. Arora, will we have to admit that it looks difficult? You're still going to have a large proportion of Indians not vaccinated by the time the third wave hits. If our timeline for third wave is end of 2021, beginning of 2022, you're not going to be ready with having covered enough people.
So I will pick on what both Shashank and Ravi has said. And that is that preparation for pediatric. And here I would like to give example of COVID hospital established by All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. The trauma center has been converted into COVID hospital. And I think it is one of the finest example globally, because I have just visited yesterday for some personal reasons and then I saw it. It already has a pediatric component. It has a component for pregnant women. It has a component for lactating women, and also a component where those who have require urgent surgeries like head injury or roadside accident. So it's a very comprehensive center. And I think the whole country has to move in that direction. And there is expertise available in the country how to organize this. So whatever COVID hospitals are coming up and whatever are existing within the framework, because I would not put a COVID positive child in a normal pediatric ward or ICU. So I have to have that system. And I think this is the time the whole country has to start working. And I will request Shashank that as he is member of the task force, Maharashtra can take a lead, and similarly Ravi in Karnataka and other parts also. The second component is we cannot overlook a reality that vaccine is limited amount. I told last time that till July, August, we have a supply of 600 million doses. That is committed and we have got it. Now, in the second half, the BBL, Bharat Biotech, is likely to have a 7 to 8-fold increase in the production, and Serum Institute by 1.5 times. So that we should, and plus there are other manufacturers, as very rightly said, by Cadila Zydus, we should have Genova, we should have some Novax, as well as Johnson & Johnson, plus Sputnik. So we should be having at least 200 million doses per month by August or September. So we will be in a much more comfortable position by that time, and we can very aggressively see. Today the vaccine has slowed down. There is I think shortage on one side, but there is also fear. People say मैं vaccine लगवाने जाऊं मेरे को infection ना हो जाए. So some of those things have also come in, that even when the age has been expanded, the people are not going, notwithstanding that still there are 60,000 immunization centers. Even if every immunization center does 100, it is 6 million people can be immunized every day, even today. But it is not being used, and there are various other reasons also.
Dr. Arora, the people who want to get vaccinated outstrip those who, may have hesitancy. The fact is, this is a supply side issue.
Yes,
no
at that
doubt
time,
about
I
that.
totally agree.
This is a supply side issue.
Tamanna, I agree that there is a supply side issue. Currently, we have total availability with the countries around 60 million doses per month or 70 million doses per month. And this is likely to increase. So, but still, it is quite upsetting that we are not even touching 2 million every day, which was the average was 2.5 or 3 million in April. And as I understand from all over, that people are really a little wary, particularly the elderly population. More younger people are trying to get it in the limited sites they have been allocated. But the elders are wary, while it is the most important time that when the epidemic is raging, they should be reaching out for second dose much more. But these are dynamics, and I think that need to be taken up separately. But vaccination has to be taken up aggressively. Yeah.
Sure.
And in the second half, I think we will be much more comfortable July onwards. And efforts are being made that we have at least by March or so about 1.5 billion doses.
I want to spend no, absolutely. Point taken, sir. Point taken. I want to spend a few minutes focusing on what to do. So now viewers who are seeing this know the following facts, that there is likely to be there is going to be a third wave. It is likely to be end of this year, early next year. A lot of experts believe that children could be more vulnerable in the third wave simply because they've been relatively less exposed in wave number 1 and 2, and that's how viruses work. They attack those who are left out, so to speak. Now the question is, what do we do? Let's come to that point, Dr. Joshi, and while we're ending this discussion, give people something concrete in terms of what they can do. Does this effectively mean that children going back to school, going back to events, mingling with others, all of that is going to be on hold for quite some more time?
Absolutely, Tamanna. I think that's going to be reasonable. And I think we need to get our mental health professionals in order, because it's going to have an impact. The schooling has got impacted, and we need to get our mental health professionals, counselors, teachers, and we are definitely looking for a digital school, because we know what happened every time a school opened in the United States or Europe, and we don't want to redo the thing. So clearly we are mindful of the fact that we don't want spreader or super spreader events. Schools are not easy to handle. Children behavioral stage is more tough. Where we can't handle adults, children probably are going to be more tough to handle. So we are clearly mindful of the fact that it is unlikely that the schools and colleges will open that rapidly. We will have to saturate our population, as Arora said, with the vaccination. That will be definitely taking off by July for sure, and probably by December, we will be having a substantial population vaccine. And I'm reasonably certain that by July, August, we'll also have a pediatric cohort, clinical trial database ready, both for India and outside of India. So I think we should not be pessimistic. I'm an optimist. I reasonably feel that we are in for a little difficult period, but we'll need to be a little more calm, disciplined, proactive and focused. And I think we can tide over. It's a matter of another 3 to 6 months. And I'm reasonably certain that we can come out of it. But COVID appropriate behavior will have to stay. And I think children also will have to follow some guidance in that direction.
Yeah, and we have to make sure that all children are protected and continue to be protected. That the We'll have to wait and see how this unfolds over the time to come. But I want to thank all of you for joining us with your insights and views. This is the best of the best in terms of inputs on details of the third wave. So thank you so much once again. I'll take a very short break. But when we come back, we are talking about waiving off of patents for vaccines. We've been talking about, the supply shortages of vaccines over here. One way to tackle it, and the world agrees, is that you let more people make those vaccines, right? And vaccines and other drugs are protected by patents by the pharmaceutical industry. They need to protect it so that it makes sense for them to actually invest in making these technologies come through. But can those patents now be waived off after the United States is on board? We're talking about that after this very short break. I will be speaking with Sudarshan Jain. He's the Secretary General of the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, and Keval Handa, industry expert, after this very short break.